Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer from Sierra Nevada Alliance, and I am just going to give one more minute for a couple more people to log on. So we'll get started around 12:05. So if you could put your name in, it looks like most people do have their names, but if not, you could put your name and your organization, pronouns. I am leaving mine as Sierra Nevada Alliance because I'm also sharing my screen with my colleague, Rebecca here. So Jennifer and Rebecca on the Sierra Nevada Alliance screen. Welcome. Okay, so we are going to get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Sierra Nevada Alliance's March webinar. I'm Jennifer Marshall, and I'm the Alliance's Community Engagement and Development Director. So welcome, and I'm so happy that all of you could join us today. I'm pleased to introduce Josh Fryday, who leads California Volunteers and is also the Chief Service Officer with the Office of the Governor. He manages the Governor's service, volunteer, and civic engagement efforts throughout the state of California. And it's a special honor to have Josh here today, as California Volunteers is the largest funder and supporter of our longstanding SNAP program. So that's our Sierra Nevada AmeriCorps partnership. And during Josh's presentation, he will discuss the power of service to bridge divides and create equity and justice, and also the importance of service in general. He'll talk about the legacy of service champions, such as Cesar Chavez, and how Governor Newsom invests in service in California. And also the important role of AmeriCorps California programs like the Alliance's SNAP program. But before I turn it over to Josh, we have a special guest, our very own Rebecca Williams, who is our SNAP program director, and she will briefly talk about the program successes and how to get involved. So I'm going to just shift here and turn it over to her.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see so many familiar faces in the waiting room. Thank you all for attending, and it's a real honor for us to have Josh with us here today. Josh offers a lot of inspiration for me and for our program, and I need to figure out how to share my screen. Right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about SNAP for just a minute. I know a lot of you are familiar with this awesome program and sort of the goals we've been making over the years. It is host site recruitment time right now. So a little bit of this is plugging on all of you and to talk to your partners and the other organizations you work with and talk to people about getting SNAP members. The SNAP program needs some more host sites. The SNAP program focuses on the three categories: restoring and monitoring impaired Sierra watersheds, education and outreach to Sierra residents, and recruitment and management engagement of volunteers. And so those are sort of the three categories your programs can come into and sort of contribute to this program. We're really excited to make local partnerships. SNAP members come from a place of national service. These are really special individuals who have chosen national service over maybe just a low-paid internship job. And it's a rewarding experience for the host sites often. You guys get to offer mentorship, professional development, supported by the SNAP program. There's a lot of amazing things involved in hosting SNAP members and hosting AmeriCorps members. And if it's not the SNAP program, I really encourage you guys to seek out some of these AmeriCorps opportunities that might fit your programs. It's really an amazing, AmeriCorps and the Fryday Corps is really an amazing thing to be involved in. So the SNAP program is spread out throughout the Sierra Nevada. We've got sites all the way south now as actually Porterville and Springville and up into sort of the Quincy area that we have a couple of ones coming on this fall. Ideally, we would like to have full-term SNAP members. So the SNAP program is always going to be focusing on full-term 11-month terms of service. And sometimes we can fill in some reduced half-term or half-term spots if we don't fill all of our full-term spots, but just want to plug it out there. The most meaningful experience for both the members and the host sites really does come from that full-term service. These are some of the amazing things that SNAP members have done over the years. This is our 17th year of the program. And so we've really, you can see the force multiplier effect here of AmeriCorps members in the SNAP program, and just the amount of volunteers they're able to work with, people they're able to educate, straight up acres they've been able to restore. It's really impressive numbers when you look at them all together. And this is really speaks to that piece of how service members and people who choose national service just come in with a lot of drive and idealism to really help and contribute back to the greater good. So I can't say enough about how it's not only a rewarding experience for these young folks, it's essential for our workforce development. I think we're all facing workforce challenges right now. And please get involved. Please reach out to me about what it takes to become a host site. I love to partner with all of you and really appreciate our current host sites. Here's a quick list you can read through, but we've got a lot of varying sites. It's not just people who are doing restoration. It's also people who are focusing on environmental education, who are focusing on volunteer management. AmeriCorps and SNAPs, one of their main goals is to really strive for capacity building. So we're even here to help some of maybe the smaller organizations that are trying to grow their programs and grow their capacity. So here's just some cool pictures of some of the amazing things that AmeriCorps members are out there doing. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to Josh. And again, Josh, thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward to hearing your great words of inspiration.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be with you all. I'm not sure that there'll be great words of inspiration, but what you certainly will hear from me and which is believed by the governor's office is a lot of pride. It's a lot of pride of what you all are doing, your work every single day. You just got to see some of the amazing outputs and impacts of it, and a lot of pride of our partnership with you all. It's something that in the governor's office, we talk about, the governor talks about the service programs we have all the time. And so we just feel very proud of you all and the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having. Like we're proud of Cesar Chavez as being a Californian and a leader and a fighter and someone that we're celebrating today. So thank you to you both. Thank you to everyone at the SNAP program. For making today possible, for bringing us all together on this day of celebration where we get to celebrate Cesar Chavez and also get to celebrate all of you and get to say thank you to all of the nonprofit partners that are part of this program and working throughout the state. And of course, the most important and a huge thank you to our AmeriCorps service members who have stepped up in a very real way to support our state and to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing not just California, but literally our planet. So thank you. And with that spirit, I think what I'll just start off by sharing is a little bit of why I think today is so important. And it's why I think celebrating and honoring Cesar Chavez is so important for California, and why it's so connected to the spirit of the work that we're all doing together, the spirit of service. Last year, I had the privilege of actually visiting the Cesar Chavez National Monument, which it's in Keene, California. It's about 45 minutes outside of Bakersfield. If you haven't been there, highly recommend you go there. Obama made a national monument. It's a beautiful place. It's where Cesar Chavez wanted to create a commune, a place for spiritual rest and rejuvenation for his farm worker organizers. And it was a place that for him, he found spiritual well-being and healing, and it was also a place to build community. And I had a chance to meet his not just some of his kids, but some of his grandchildren who are now continuing his legacy in an impactful way. And it just reminded me, reflecting on that time there and how special of a place it was, how special of a place he created, and the legacy he created, that this theme that we have today around creating social and economic and environmental justice through service, that it starts by being rooted in acknowledging the reality, which is there's a lot of injustice in the world. There's a lot of injustice around us, a lot of inequities, a lot of unfairness. It's why we need to create social justice and economic justice and environmental justice. And Cesar Chavez understood this. It was what his whole entire life was about. He recognized that we had this unbelievable injustice in our society where those, think about it, those who were literally providing the basic necessities for the rest of us, who gave us nourishment and health to all of us, didn't have the basic necessities themselves. That while they were providing us with healthy foods and our children with healthy foods, they were put in dangerous situations and in very dangerous circumstances. That they were giving us our basic necessities and helping us meet our basic needs of food and nourishment when they didn't have their basic necessities covered themselves. Deep injustice, deep problem. He recognized this, and he sought out and he dedicated and committed literally his entire life, which is why we're celebrating him today, to service by challenging himself, by challenging our systems, how everything was created, by challenging our institutions, both big and small, to challenge our leaders to be better. But in addition to challenging not just our systems and our society and our institutions, he also challenged all of us. He challenged all of us very personally. And I think if we think about the injustices that all of us now are facing and want to try to tackle together and want to try to heal, it can be daunting sometimes. And you think about climate change, for instance, and this planetary issue, this existential threat, it can be very intimidating and sometimes paralyzing to think that we have these really big issues, or racial injustice, or the huge, massive economic inequalities that we have in our society. It can feel daunting and discouraging to think about these really big problems, which is why I love a quote that Cesar Chavez once had that I wanted to share with you all, because I think it does provide hope, and it provides a sense and understanding of why he committed his life to service in such a deep and profound way. And he once said, "It is possible to become discouraged about the injustices that we see everywhere, but God did not promise us that the world would be humane and just. He gives us the gift of life and allows us to choose the way we will use our limited time on earth. And it is an awesome opportunity." And so that's what I want to talk to us about today, is about this awesome opportunity that we all have to choose the way that we are going to use our limited time on this planet, and to think about how are we going to use that time to help others, to tackle injustice, to address some of these big problems, but how are we also going to create more opportunities so that other people can also choose to be part of the unbelievable feeling you all get to experience when you serve, of reducing suffering for others, of reversing injustices, of actually being part of the solution and helping create a more humane world. And the question I think Cesar challenges us with, and that remains with us today, and that I ask myself every day, and I imagine all of you and many of you who have committed your lives and your time right now to service, ask yourself, is this not is there injustice around us? Because we know there is. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And he challenged us to do something about it, to use our life and our time on this planet to actually step up and make a difference in our own way. And I think what's so empowering about Cesar Chavez, and the reason that he captured the imagination of not just California, but really the entire country and the planet. And what's so empowering about people like Mahatma Gandhi, who very much influenced Cesar Chavez and how he organized and how he thought about creating social change, is that their leadership, that it began with individual action. It began with this idea of, let's think about what we can do ourselves. What can we do in our own lives to be a model, to model the righteous path, or to model how to help others, and how to take action in our own lives. And from that individual action, which is very empowering, because he showed us, as Gandhi showed us, and Martin Luther King and so many others, that we actually can make a difference by taking action in our own lives and in serving others. And that from that individual action is where power emanates, because it's through that action that we inspire and we organize others. It's the work that you all are doing in building capacity for organizations, inspiring volunteers, organizing volunteers in your community. That's the power and the example I think that they created. And so when we think about California Volunteers, which is the state organization really focused on and charged with how do we think about civic engagement differently? How do we create service and volunteer opportunities that really bring people together, that really provide the chance for people to connect and solve problems together in community? When we think about that role and that awesome responsibility that we have in the governor's office and with the governor's bold vision of using service as a way of actually bringing people together and tackling some of our biggest challenges that we have. When we think about that, I think we can apply some very important lessons from Cesar Chavez to what we do, and we do apply those lessons. And so I just wanted to talk with you through a little bit about how we think about the lessons from Cesar Chavez, how we apply it to the work that we're trying to do throughout state of California. And my hope is that it resonates with the work that you're doing every day in the community, because we're all doing this together. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think about Cesar Chavez and the example that he led with here in California is that everybody, literally everybody, can take action and has something important to contribute. And I think about the fact that he was at the end of the day, he was an organizer fundamentally. He organized, and he believed that the voice of every farm worker, of the poorest among us, those with the least amount of political clout and the least amount of political access, that they had an important voice and that their voice should be heard, and it should be heard through a union. And we should create a union of individual voices that then would resonate through the halls of Sacramento, and would change policy and would change power dynamics. And so, but it started with this idea that every voice mattered, everyone had someone to contribute. And so we needed to organize everyone. We needed to give every farm worker a voice, give everyone a chance to be part of a picket, give everyone a chance to be part of a march in their community or a march to Sacramento, that we need to give everyone a space for them to be heard because they valued and that they mattered. And we think about that in our work, which is how do we actually scale service opportunities so that every Californian has the kind of experience that you're now having, where you actually get to feel empowered because you're doing something very meaningful and productive for society. How do we create that? How do we scale that? How do we create a culture where everyone feels like they are valued and they have something meaningful to contribute? And that's hard, but it's why Governor Newsom has invested literally hundreds of millions of dollars over the last few years in programs like expanding AmeriCorps and elevating the not just the stipend, but the Ed Award up to $10,000 for those who serve for a year, and launching new AmeriCorps programs. It's why we created the country's first statewide climate corps to really focus on dealing with climate change as an existential threat and mobilizing and engaging communities around climate action. It's why we created the Californians for All Youth Jobs Corps, which is a program that is really designed on saying to those who might be having a hard time getting into the labor market or finding a job that's meaningful, because maybe they're former foster youth, or they're formerly incarcerated, or they've dealt with the mental health or the substance abuse system, or they've had some other challenge. We're now providing through the Youth Jobs Corps service opportunities for them to give back in really meaningful ways, because we want to send the message, just like Cesar Chavez did, that everyone has something to contribute, that everyone can do something to make all of society better. And we just need to give them the opportunity. We need to organize them. We need to provide that opportunity. And that's what we're doing by investing in these programs. We also created a new program. You can see the sign behind me. We're very proud of here in California, called the California College Corps. And this is where we are literally trying to provide debt-free pathways for low-income students to serve in their community. And Cesar Chavez had another great quote, and many of you might be familiar with this because he had so many great quotes, but he said, real education should consist of drawing the goodness and the best out of our own students. What better books can there be than the book of humanity? Think about that. What better books can there be than the Book of Humanity? And now literally thousands of Californians, because of College Corps, have the access to the Book of Humanity because they're getting paid to serve while they're in college, to serve at food banks and be with those that are food insecure, to be tutors and mentors to our low-income students who fell behind during COVID, to take climate action in communities and help protect low-income communities from the climate crisis. And so we're creating that book of humanity and as part of and building it into the education system here in California. And we're doing it through service. And I want to focus just a little bit on and tell maybe a couple of stories, if you don't mind, if you'll all indulge me, because I'm so inspired by them and I hope they resonate with you. But one of the things that we're most proud of with the College Corps program is that this is the first state service program of its kind that is now inclusive and open to our AB 540 Dreamers. And as many of you may know, Dreamers and those and AB 540 students and DACA students are too often excluded from national service opportunities because it's federal funded, other fellowship opportunities. And so this to us was an injustice. It's an injustice to think about the fact that we have 75,000 undocumented students in the state of California, and they're excluded from so many of these opportunities to serve in your community, these opportunities to get help paying for school through a fellowship or an internship. And so we set out to change that. And we did that with College Corps. And I had a chance, and I wanted to share a couple of these stories because, again, I find it so inspiring to hear what some of these students have overcome and why service is so meaningful to them. But was recently with a young woman named Alicia, who's a College Corps fellow, and she's also a dreamer. She was brought to the U.S. By her parents when she was very young, and she talks about the story of her parents who were migrant workers, and they spent their winters in the Coachella Valley picking vegetables, and then would move to the Central Californian to pick grapes, which of course was the sort of the grape boycott is what put Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers on the map and gained international attention to try to provide rights for these workers who were so abused. And her parents were those farm workers. And she began working in the fields side by side with them at the age of 14 while she was still in high school. She also had to take care of her younger brother while her parents worked. And those of you who grew up poor will understand what that's like when your parents are working from dawn to dusk, and you have to help out at home as well as think about school and also providing for your family. But her parents dreamed that she would one day go to college herself and have a better life. And now through her own hard work and her dedication, she's now in college today. She commutes 6 hours a day on public transportation, she shared with us, to get to and from campus. But she joined College Corps because she wanted to give back to her community. She wanted to work at the high school she attended, which is surrounded by farm fields where students go to work, and the students then work side by side with their parents. And she gets to mentor and help Latino students with their college applications and their FAFSA loan applications because she once got that help from a mentor, and now she gets to give back. And she talked to us about the importance of going to college and encouraging other students who look like her and come from similar backgrounds as her to be able to go to college and keep up with their classes as well. And what she shared with me is that being a College Corps fellow, being a service member, just like you all are, many of you are, or many of you supervise service members or work with service members, has helped her find a career path because she now knows that she wants to spend her life committed to helping others. She wants to become a therapist, and she's working really hard towards this. And this was the spirit, I think, of the opportunity that Cesar Chavez fought so hard to create. And we're now taking that opportunity and we're providing it for a new generation. I also got a chance to meet Giovanni, another dreamer who is an undocumented child, said that he felt like going through school, because of the challenges, because opportunities weren't afforded to him because of his status, that he just resigned himself to the idea that he would never go to college, and that was not something that he could do or ever have the chance to, and that ultimately he felt hopeless. But that one counselor, he had that one counselor that so many of us know that makes that difference and that change in your life, who believed in him and single-handedly gave him the tools and the resources to be able to go to college. And he found out about the College Corps Fellowship. He signed up, and now he gets to work, not just go to college, which is something he never thought was going to be available to him, but he works at a nonprofit that helps people find their own way in education. So he gets to give back, just like Alicia did. Also met another young woman, also a dreamer, Yesenia from UCLA. And she tells such a just compelling and heartwarming story of working in the orange orchards as a 7-year-old with her father side by side, picking up fruit and dropping it into the bin that the farm workers have. And she wanted to help, but she talks about feeling overwhelmed that no matter how much she did, she wasn't helping her dad fill up the bin, that he had too much to fill. And it was hot and it was dirty and she was sweating. And of course, she tells this so much more compelling than I am. But so thank you for indulging me, letting me share this with you. But she started to have tears in her eyes, and her father assured her that she was actually helping him, that she was making a difference, that by just taking a small step, even if her oranges weren't as big as her dad's or as many, that actually helped. And she also said that she made a promise that she would make she made a promise to her father that she would make a life better for herself by going to college and not just working in the fields. And that and she thinks about this whole experience. She tied her whole experience of growing up working side by side with her father to a metaphor of the contributions now being made by service members, College Corps fellows, but also service members like you, where she said that the bins, and I'll never forget this the rest of our life, that the bins the service members seek to fill are the bins of those who are less fortunate, those who have been left behind. And as a tutor, she's been able to fill other people's bins in a new way. And when I think about that, that's how I think about your work to protect our environment, your work to deal with the environmental injustice of our planet, of what's happened to our state, and literally protect those who give us the basic necessities, just like farm workers, the trees who give us the fresh air we breathe, the water that we drink, the health of our environment that's so critical to our well-being. I think about you as filling the bin of our state, of filling the bin of hope, and of clean water and of clean air. And it's so important. And if you think about just the metaphor also of even the small action of adding 1 orange or 2 oranges to the bin, when you think about how all those contributions, all of your contributions, all of the contributions of your fellow service members, of those thousands of volunteers that you're helping organize, when you think about how that all adds up, that it might seem small in the moment, but when you add it all up and you combine the effort, those ripples eventually become a wave. And those waves eventually become a tsunami. And that's the kind of tsunami of change that not just do we need in California around climate change and around other issues of injustice, economic injustice, racial injustice, but that's the kind of change that Cesar Chavez created. By giving the first step of every farm worker the chance to have a voice, to be part of a union, to march, to picket, all of those little actions turned to waves, and they created a tsunami that changed the world. And so as we think about in California, how do we create the same kind of change now for the big problems we have? It's about investing in service, so that not just can you have the opportunity and your fellow service members, but the volunteers that you organize. And just to give you a sense of scale, because of the programs that I listed, the AmeriCorps expansion programs, the Climate Corps, the College Corps, our Youth Jobs Corps, in California now, our service is literally larger than the Peace Corps, the entire Peace Corps here in California. So we're creating a force of people just like you all across the state that are stepping up to make change, and it's going to create a tsunami of change over time. So the first thing we think about is how do we empower, just like Cesar Chavez did, those who don't have a voice, those who may think that just by taking one action or volunteering 1 hour or serving up to serve, signing up to serve 1 year service isn't going to make that big of a deal. How do we make sure that we scale that so that we show everyone that they have something really important to contribute? And if we're actually going to solve these problems, we need you to contribute. And the second thing is, and this is related to this, but what we learned from Cesar Chavez is that you need to organize, you need to engage others. We can't do this ourselves. And he had another quote I'll share with you where he said very bluntly, talk is cheap. It is the way we organize and use our lives every day that tells us what we believe in. And so when I see those numbers, the fact that the Sierra Nevada Alliance and the SNAP program has engaged 45,000 volunteers to take action in our state, that you've literally engaged people for hundreds of thousands of hours of service, that's not cheap talk. That's organizing every day because of what you believe in. And that's how we create change. That's our Cesar Chavez created change. And that's how we're going to create change around these really big issues. It's also why we created our Climate Action Corps. Literally, the idea was that we needed to create opportunities for people to organize in communities and engage volunteers, just like many of you are doing. And we needed to do that throughout the state, especially in those communities that are hit hardest by climate change and have too often and too long been underinvested in. So we created the Climate Corps so that we could organize more. We can organize people around climate action and that we can engage more people. We also learned from Cesar Chavez that you have to, if you're going to be successful in creating change, if you're going to be successful in taking on really deep injustices in the world, that you have to bring people together, people that maybe don't look like each other or think like each other, or maybe they vote differently, or maybe they come from very different backgrounds. But to be successful, we have to figure out how to get out of our comfort zone and work with people of different backgrounds. And that's a lesson that I learned. It's one of the benefits, I think, of my service experience that I had in the military, where I had a chance to work with people who thought differently than me, came from very different places than I did. But when you have a common mission and a common purpose to accomplish something, that's where great things happen. And Cesar Chavez did that. One of the most famous parts of his movement and most important parts of his movement, and if you go to his monument in Keene, you'll see this celebrated and embraced, is the fact that the farm worker movement was not just what many people candidly think about as being Latino or South American or Central American farm workers, or North American coming from Mexico. In fact, the power of the farm worker movement came from Latino farm workers working with Filipino farm workers. And it was the force of them coming together that created the power to create the change. And so they were able to unite, bring people together, different backgrounds to work together. And it also captured the imaginations of people that came from very different places, people that came from positions of power and leadership. If you think about the iconic pictures of Cesar Chavez, it's when he's marching or fasting, and he's side by side with who? With RFK, the brother of the former president, a candidate for president himself at the time. He captured the imagination, was able to bring RFK into the cause. He became friends with and built relationships with, at first, Pat Brown, who was the governor during the 60s of California, to get policy done and to take his side in some of the big farm worker fights. And then later on, Jerry Brown, Pat Brown's son, and the next governor several years later in the 70s. So he was able to forge these alliances, bring people together who maybe didn't have similar experiences, but they had found a common cause with each other. And when we think about the power of service, we think about that ability to bring people together, to connect people, to say we have a really big problem we want to solve together, whether it's protecting our Sierras, whether it's protecting our water, protecting the climate, tutoring or mentoring, whatever it may be. We have a big problem, and we need to cut across whatever our differences we think they may be to accomplish something great and important together. And that's the power of service for us. It's why we're so committed to it. And it's why we think the work that you're doing is so incredibly important. And finally, and I think in many ways, this may be the most important aspect of what we learned from Cesar Chavez and what we try to apply to our own work here in California, is that service, and hopefully, I hope many of you are starting to experience some of this and starting to feel it in a real way, because it's certainly how I think about my service, maybe in retrospect. But when you reflect upon your service, you realize that service is not really a sacrifice at all. That service actually gives you an opportunity to have meaning and to have purpose. And at the end of the day, that's what we seek. That's what life is about. Cesar Chavez said, "It is my deepest belief that only by giving our lives do we find life." Think about that. It is only by giving our lives that we find life, that we actually find the essence of life, the purpose of life, the meaning of life through giving it to others, through service. Gandhi had a similar quote where he said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." So as we all sort of as we all go through the continual cycle of trying to find ourselves and develop ourselves and become better and find ourselves and create ourselves, it's through service where we can find that deep meaning, where we can find, as Cesar Chavez called it, life itself. And he had this great line from a poem he wrote called "The Prayer of the Farm Worker's Struggle." And in that poem, he says, and again, this is called "The Prayer of the Farm Worker's Struggle." He says, "Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there's true life." And so we know that organizing, engaging communities, serving is necessary if we're going to create real social change. But I think we also have to recognize and celebrate the fact that service is necessary for our own spiritual and personal well-being, that it's what makes us human beings, the idea that we live in community, that we're connected with each other. And when I think about Keene, I think back to the commune that he created, and which is now a monument that I visited last year, where he lived with other farm workers and where his family now continues to work and live. At the end of the day, he built that because he recognized what all of this work was about, what everything, all of the service, all of the marches, all of the work, all of the sacrifice. At the end of the day, it was about community, and it was about connection to each other, connection to the land, connection to your family, connected to yourself. And that connection, that community that was so fundamental to what he built and what he did, that's what you are building. That's what the governor believes you are building in your work, in your service. And that's what all of us are building together. That's the project here. The project is, how do we build in a time when we're so isolated, we're so divided, we're so disconnected. We watch the politics of this country and it's tearing everyone apart. We see the inequalities, we see the injustices. How do we build a community that we can all feel like we're part of, that we belong to, and that we're connected to each other? And as we do this work together, as we embark on this journey together and continue this work together, remember what Cesar Chavez says. As you're out there and you're clearing trails, or you're protecting water, or protecting trees, or working on a variety of issues, remember what he said, that the fight is never about grapes or lettuce. It's always about people. And in our work, don't forget the challenge that he gave to us, that in the face of injustice, of which we all know there's a lot, in the face of things like climate change, which can feel daunting and paralyzing, the challenge to all of us is, how will we choose the limited time we have on Earth? And what makes me so proud and so grateful for the opportunity to celebrate with you all today and be here with you all today is that you have made that choice. It's why you're here. It's why you're here. It's why you do the work that you do every single day. And so now I think the question for us collectively, honestly, the challenge for all of us is how do we go out there and create that opportunity for more people? Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We're so proud to call you partners and friends, and happy to answer any and all questions, and look forward to continuing to celebrate the service of Cesar Chavez, not just today, but throughout the year and throughout our entire lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh and Rebecca, for joining us today. Great presentation and very relevant and inspirational for our SNAP program and members, host sites, conservation organizations, and everyone here interested in learning about serving, the history of Cesar Chavez and Cesar Chavez Day. I think this was just great and very relevant. So just a couple words. I would like to invite our guests to contribute, if you're able, to Sierra Nevada Alliance to help keep these monthly webinars free and accessible to all, and then also to support all of our other efforts to protect the Sierra Nevada land, water, and wildlife. And so to do this, you can visit sierranevadaalliance.org for our main website, and there is also a donation button there, and you can help join in on these efforts just a little bit more. But before we open this up to our Q&A, California volunteers would like to take a quick photo here. So if you are able and interested, if you could turn your video camera on, Joya or Danielle will take a quick screenshot here. And then after that, we can either leave your cameras on, or you can, and then, or you can turn them back off, and we'll get into the Q&A. So if you can turn your cameras on so we can see your faces and get a quick little fun picture here for their social media. So Joya or Danielle, just let us know when you're ready to go. Are you there?
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself. Yes. So I will take it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I'm gonna grab one more.
Do you want to turn yours on, Danielle?
I hid myself, so I'm not. Don't worry, I'm not showing,
smart.
so
You've got all the tricks.
all right, 1, 2, 3. One last time. Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Great. So if you'd like to leave your video on, that would be nice to see your faces. I would love to have any questions in the chat, and then we got a few other questions sent to us directly. So we can open it up now, and I have a few questions here that I can start off with while people add some more to the chat. So, Josh, what inspired you to dedicate your work to service and breaking down barriers?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Who asked, can I know who asked that question, or was it anonymous?
This was actually one of our staff that was listening in.
Oh, okay, great, excellent. I think it's really rooted in what I've always been interested, which is how do you make change in this world? And I've found, at least in my own life, that the times I've had the chance to serve, whether it was in the Dominican Republic when I was in high school, or in the military, or as a mayor of my hometown, or as a head of a nonprofit, and the times when I've been able to serve is where I've actually felt empowered, like I was creating real change, and felt that I was able to make a difference in the world around me. And so for me, it's where I've found that outlet where I've actually felt empowered and felt like you can make a difference. And so for me, it's thinking about, if you really want to create big change, how do we create that opportunity for more people? How do we empower everyone so we can create that tsunami we talked about earlier for the kind of change that we actually need in our society. And so for me, that's been sort of the personal motivation based on my own personal experience.
Thanks. And then one other question. So when recruiting AmeriCorps members, one consistent barrier seems to be the living allowance, especially for those who come from backgrounds of low socioeconomic status. And so what do you recommend to help remove that barrier so we can diversify our membership for our program and our host sites?
Yeah, great question. Not the first time we've heard that challenge. Listen, my recommendation is we increase the pay significantly. That's what I recommend. But to do that, we have to get more resources in the game. And we have to get elected officials and those who control resources to invest in this more, which is why it's been so important. I think what Governor Newsom's done over the last few years by allowing us to increase the living allowance in many ways, allowing us to increase the Ed Award. So those who do a year of service do get up to $10,000 now, which other states don't do. It's why the College Corps program that has right now over 70% of its students are Pell Grant, 80% of them are self-identified students of color, and we include Dreamers for the first time, as we talked about. It's why investing in this stuff matters, so that you can make it more inclusive, because we need to make it more inclusive, because we believe that everyone has something to contribute. We just have to create that opportunity for everybody. So those are some of the steps that we've taken, but we're going to keep pushing to make sure that that we do keep highlighting the fact that we do need to pay service members more. I think it's just a fact, and it's also why telling the story of the impact you all are having, especially to elected officials and others, is so critical.
Awesome. And then, so as far as, efforts to kind of increase that living stipend, is your office and your department kind of leading those efforts, or how would we back something like that?
Yeah,
to get more funding, basically.
Yeah, good. No, it's a good question. So one, there's always ways to push your elected officials at the federal level and at the state level to try to get more resources. Maybe Odd Mua is the director of AmeriCorps here in California. Maybe if I could call on you, I don't know if you're allowed to speak. If not, maybe you want to talk about some of the steps we're taking on this issue.
Yeah, and I want to maybe just really give a shout out to Josh, because I think this is probably one of the top issues that Josh has been championing and advocating for service members in particular in California, and I think really leading the way to kind of model that we need to pay service members at least a living wage. And so we are definitely adopting that as a policy for California, that it has to at least be a living allowance, moving forward, right? So that is a policy change that we have been championing, and it's really thanks to Josh's leadership and support. Josh has also really led a lot of efforts to try to find ways for us to increase resources. And so we're not only changing the policy, but if you notice in the last couple of years, we've been creating a number of opportunities, and whenever we are able to expand funding, that is the first place that it's been, we've been invested in. And so I think as a state, we've made some incremental progress. I think we are moving in the right directions. And the good news is that I think on the national front, Biden administrations and AmeriCorps federal agencies also recognizing that we also need to move forward and increase the pay. So there is proposed legislation to significantly increase the minimum living allowance for AmeriCorps starting in FY24. It's still a legislative proposal. I think Biden's wants to move towards, ensuring $15 and by 2025. I think in California, we think that is, we need to be a lot more aggressive. And so, I think continuing to kind of really tell your story, I think push for some of these really good legislative changes. And I continue to, I think, kind of lift up the great work that everybody's doing, because I think California is also really trying to model that in terms of the pay. So we're making some good efforts. We think it's still modest, but I think under Josh's leadership and just many of the changes that he's been championing, just know that this is a really, really important issue for us, and that we're making some good progress.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being advocates for our programs and for our members and host sites. It's really important to keep up to pace with some of the, it is about the dedication to service, but it can be a tough call, as you know, when someone comes to our program and then they're also being offered a job. So we really appreciate you being that voice. It's awesome. Good to know we have, folks like you in our corner, and especially for the members that serve. Have a question for Rebecca that popped up. So on the flip side, so how can hosting an AmeriCorps member benefit an organization?
I'm going to use your microphone unless you want to mute yourself.
Okay.
It's a really good question. And so there's a lot of quantifiable benefits for our host sites on SNAP members, just straight up when you look at the workflow, the capacity building, the unified force of your community engagement and your education and outreach programs. There's things that the SNAP program provides, like HR resources, recruitments, first round interviews, sort of finding you good candidates. But there's also some, maybe less quantifiable benefits. It is very inspiring to be around these amazing people who have chosen national service, and they often come in with a view and a drive to serve and to get good things done and to help the communities and give back. And when some of us have been in the industry for a long time and hear a lot of the doom and gloom kind of stories about the environment, that can just be so invaluable to your organization to bring in this fresh energy and this inspiration and these new ideas and these new ways for you to tackle problems and these desires and passions to tackle problems that you don't even know that you can be a part of the solution to, so there's a lot of pieces. You get to mentor someone, which pays back in dividends over the life of anyone's career. It's a connection you keep. Over 100 of our SNAP members or SNAP alumni are working in the conservation community throughout the Sierra Nevada, and there's a big cohort of them in Colorado. And so this is a lifelong and career-long network you get to build. And when people talk about serving, it's a place to start these relationships and a place to build off of where some of these things that you want to get done. So I'm very passionate about national service and very passionate about the environment. And so I often talk to our SNAP members when we're recruiting them about how there are all these benefits to national service that go beyond maybe the living stipend and what you can count. You can really be a part of this bigger problem and bigger solutions for the environment and our communities and our rural communities, and just a bigger part of the solution to the world's problems. And I'm really honored to be able to work with them. I think it's really amazing that folks get to choose service, and I work very hard to give them a good experience. And most of that comes from you guys as SNAP host sites. You get to contribute to this amazing service experience these members get to have. And a lot of times that'll turn into lifelong relationships and friendships for the host site supervisors as well. So in a nutshell, there's lots of benefits. Please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe that is the last question that I have that has come through. So I want to thank Josh, Rebecca, everyone from California Volunteers, once again, for the inspiring and uplifting presentation to everyone online and everyone here participating. Thank you for joining today, whether you are an AmeriCorps member thinking about AmeriCorps, a host site, a conservation organization, partner, just wanting to learn more, please do get in touch either with Rebecca, who will put her contact information if you're interested in learning more about the SNAP program, either becoming a SNAP member or a host site. We really love to hear from you and are very open to talking further. And then I believe Joya will put the contact information for California volunteers in the chat as well. If she doesn't get a chance to do that, I will send it out later. Just one plug for Sierra Nevada Alliance. I wanted to invite you all to attend our Wild and Scenic Film Festival, either in person or virtually. Tickets are on sale right now, but for you that are across the Sierra, across California, we do have virtual tickets available on our website. And so please attend one way or the other if you can. It's a fundraiser for Sierra Nevada Alliance, and that also supports, we've got 3 of our SNAP members who are taking a huge role in coordinating this. So if you buy a ticket, helps them out and helps them feature and showcase their work. And then again, thank you so much. And be on the lookout for more Earth Month events and our 2023 calendar events online. Big thanks, Josh, Rebecca, again, California volunteers, and everyone on the call. Have a
Thank you
great
all.
day.